Huang Yueli's body was sent flying back in a split second. Li Moying had always been watching her in full concentration and alertness, and on seeing this, he immediately moved. His figure turned into a dash of brilliant light, which was so shockingly fast, and managed to catch hold of her before Huang Yueli crashed onto the wall. Huang Yueli crashed heavily on her own fiancé's chest, and she had yet to settle her shock when she heard the man's dull moan from behind. She hurriedly turned over and asked anxiously, "Moying, are you all right?" "I'm fine. The one in trouble is you." Li Moying stared fiercely at her, and on seeing her pulling back her shoulder pitifully, he was still not appeased as he couldn't help but pinch her nose, turning it all red. Huang Yueli hurriedly covered her nose. "Boo-hoo. Now you're conducting domestic violence? I'm really so pitiful." "You're pitiful? I'm the one who's pitiful. I told you 10 million of times that you must be careful. It's merely just a little Qilin. What's there to be excited about?" Li Moying replied her in an upset tone. Huang Yueli couldn't help but rebutted, "What do you mean by just a little Qilin? This is an ancient spiritual beast. Don't tell me you don't know what a young sapling of a spiritual beast means in soaring heaven's continent? I've grown until this big and only seen an ancient spiritual beast in drawings." Li Moying gave her a chilly stare. "You don't even draw up a draft when you're bullish asterisk ting? Only seen it on drawings? Then what's that stupid bird called Wang Kai?" Huang Yueli was speechless as she stomped her feet. "You're intentionally picking on me. Anyway, other than Wang Kai, have you ever seen any other living spiritual beasts? Even if it's Wang Kai, it's merely just a spiritual body, whereas this is a living, ancient spiritual beast." She intentionally emphasized once again as she added, "Moreover, it's so cute." Li Moying was flabbergasted, but he also understood that what Huang Yueli said was correct. The sapling of an ancient spiritual beast, if he nurtured it properly, it would become a powerful aid in future, especially after their rebirths. No matter in terms of their cultivation or the backing behind them, it was totally incomparable to their past lives. They needed to resume back to the peak and to find out the mastermind who harmed Huang Yueli then. So powerful battle power was definitely required. With this little Qilin, it indeed was doubling their power. Li Moying hugged Huang Yueli and let her just, "All right, let me do it. You worrisome young lass, move aside." Huang Yueli anxiously followed behind him. "You? Be careful. Earlier, I went to hug that little Qilin and had already observed carefully. There aren't any special mechanisms in the surroundings, so it's the little Qilin's spiritual power which expelled me. Although it had been sealed away for so many years, its ability is definitely not ordinary, so you must be very careful." Huang Yueli had not yet completed her sentence when her eyes suddenly widened as it was filled with indescribable shock. She saw Li Moying walk over to the tall counter in big steps. He first observed the surroundings, and after hearing Huang Yueli mention that there weren't any mechanisms, he directly reached his hand out towards that little Qilin. His action was very gentle, very slow, and moreover, he had worked up his profound energy, preparing for a fierce battle at any point of time. But reality was out of their expectations. When Li Moying's finger touched that little Qilin, he didn't feel any resistance, or perhaps it could be said that he didn't feel any profound energy fluctuations at all. You can also listen on. He stretched out both hands as he directly held the little Qilin and lifted it up. For the entire duration, the entire process was unexpectedly smooth, and he totally didn't show any signs of expulsion. Huang Yueli was totally dazed upon seeing this scenario, and after some time, she walked up and said in a dissatisfied tone, "What's going on? How could it be like this? Why is it that you can hug it while I was being rejected in such a harsh manner?" Li Moying replied, "Well, he was about to say something when he felt the little thing in his hand suddenly nudged. Little Qilin's body shook several times in his hand and slowly opened its eyes. That pair of clear and lively crystal-like eyes was bright and sparkly as brilliant lights radiated from it, merging as one with its gorgeous scales on its body. Wow! Huang Yueli was just about to exclaim that this little thing was just too adorable, but she had not expected that immediately after the little Qilin opened its eyes, it turned its head towards Li Moying and stuck out its little tongue, licking Li Moying's palm several times. This obedient look was just too adorable. Huang Yueli instantly forgot to lecture it as she stretched out her hand, wanted to touch it. Whoever knew, this time was exactly the same as previous. Her finger had yet touched the little Qilin when she felt a huge wave of energy coming at her. Luckily, she was prepared this round and managed to retract her hand in time while retreating several steps, getting rid of that strength. What situation is this? Huang Yueli's eyes widened like full moons. Little Qilin raised its head and cried out in her direction, although she didn't understand the Qilin language. But just from the tone alone, Huang Yueli could instinctively tell that this little Qilin was filled with disgust towards her. Li Moying couldn't help but laughed out. Honestly speaking, he had never seen Huang Yueli putting on such a deflated expression in front of a spiritual pet, because she had always been given the gift of attracting young saplings since her past life. She was especially able to gain various high-level magical beasts' younglings' favorable impression, and she would always receive various spiritual pets when she went on experience learning. It was Li Moying whose nature was cold, hence many young magical beasts were afraid of him. Those spiritual pets which were contracted by him were usually coerced by his power and not out of their own willingness. Unlike Huang Yueli, who had many spiritual pets coming over to request for her to accept them. This was the first time that this little Qilin actually liked Li Moying so much, and on the contrary, hated Huang Yueli. Huang Yueli's face turned black. You still dare to laugh. What bewitching soup did you give this little thing? Li Moying hurriedly replied, I'm innocent. I didn't do anything at all. There's probably a reason why it doesn't like you. Probably because... He was talking halfway when he felt a sharp pain from his wrist as he couldn't help but cried out in alarm. The two of them lowered their heads and saw little Qilin, after licking Li Moying several times, suddenly revealing its sharp fangs as it bit down hard on his wrist. Little Qilin's fangs were exceptionally sharp, and in an instant, it had caused Li Moying to be injured. A malicious wound appeared on his wrist as blood started to flow outwards. Little Qilin leaned its head over and licked several mouthfuls of blood. At the same time, its body started to change evidently. Seeing its body slowly turning huge, almost inflating to twice its length, the scales also obviously turning harder. It raised its head and gave a loud roar resplendently. You can also listen on. Roar! A bright voice broke the room's silence, and little Qilin's scales gave off a blinding radiance. Li Moying's expression turned grave as he pursed his lips, and his right hand gathered a dim blue-purplish glow, drawing out a blinding mark in midair. The speed of his movements was extremely fast, and within 3 breaths of time, he had already struck out 10 over-incantation gestures. Little Qilin followed his actions and moved its little head to the left and right, while giving off an cry on and off. Lastly, it spat out a sliver of blood essence from its mouth, merging into one with the array pattern which Li Moying had drawn. A bright light bridge connected between the man and beast. That light bridge only flashed once and disappeared soon after. Following that, little Qilin seemed as though it had instantly exhausted all the energy within as its little brain drooped downwards, leaning against Li Moying's arm, totally not moving as though it was asleep. Its body size also started to shrink, returning back to the original size when Huang Yueli had just discovered it. Huang Yueli was originally stunned, but very quickly she realized what was happening, so she didn't dare to move or made any sound, worried that she might interrupt this one man and one beast. It was until now that she opened her mouth. You actually contracted this little Qilin. Moreover, it automatically bit your skin to contract with you. Li Moying's lips curled into a smile as he kept caressing little Qilin's scales on its back admiringly. Didn't you say that I'm so fierce and no young magical beast would like me? See, there's still some little thing which knows my value. knowing that following an owner like me will give it a bright future. Huang Yueli seemed as though her pain spot was stepped on by him as she replied in an unresigned manner. What do you mean? Earlier, that was a coincidence, a coincidence. It must have been you who used some scheme or trickery to lure this little thing. Otherwise, how could it possibly only like you and not like me? Saying that, she reached out her hand for the third time, attempting to carry this little Qilin. Whoever knew that the minute she closed in, little Qilin suddenly awoke and its little head rose up as it looked at her in full alert while giving off an ah cry, obviously threatening her not to come nearer. Huang Yueli's face turned green. Li Moying couldn't endure it and laughed. I told you it doesn't like you. Huang Yueli gave him a stare while feeling extremely unhappy. Could it be that she had no more charm left? Even a small animal didn't like her, and her fiancé kept on teasing her. Seeing his little fox's upset expression, Li Moying realized that he had gone overboard. As though he was really afraid that she was really angry, he hurriedly leaned over and said, Really angry? I'm just joking around. This little Qilin doesn't like you probably isn't your problem, but there's a real reason to it. Huang Yueli asked curiously, What? What's the reason? Li Moying explained. Do you still remember that when we first entered the mystic region, what the old fellow Cui Yuanshan said? He said this mystic region was left behind by an ancient god clan, Cloudy Qilin clan, and that this clan seemed to have some feud with the sacred phoenix race. According to the records in the ancient manuals, various god clans would rear a certain spiritual beast, and this Qilin is obviously reared by the Cloudy Qilin clan. It doesn't like a young lass from sacred phoenix race, which is a very normal thing. Huang Yueli heard his explanation and immediately understood the reason. When Cui Yuanshan was introducing the situation in Cloudy Qilin mystic region, he had really mentioned this matter. You can also listen on. It wasn't wrong to say that. It was just that they didn't know what feud had between the Cloudy Qilin clan and sacred phoenix race. That even a tiny spiritual beast wasn't willing to see her. Furthermore, the more she thought, the more unreconciled she felt. This pretty little thing was discovered by her first. She merely wanted to caress it only, and it actually didn't allow her to do so. She felt very tired. Her despondent and disappointed expression looked a little pitiful. Li Moying shook his head as he smiled, stretching out his hand to tease the little Qilin around his arm as he opened his mouth. Little thing, do you see this beautiful sister? She's your mistress, and if she doesn't like you, neither will I. So you have to listen to her obediently. Do you understand? Little Qilin's two round eyes bore a shocked expression as it kept giving out an ah cry. Spiritual beasts were excellent with human nature. It was easy to tell by just looking at little Wang Kai arguing with Huang Yueli every day. Although little Qilin was still young, but understanding what Li Moying said was no issue at all. Hearing its new master's request, it was both upset and anxious as it tried its best to stomp its little feet. Huang Yueli totally couldn't understand what it was trying to say and could only sense its extreme repulsion towards her. As she was feeling stuffed, she felt repulsive about everything that Li Moying did. Li Moying quietly listened for a moment. After he and little Qilin had formed a contract, he was able to use his soul trace to communicate with it. Not knowing what the man and beast communicated, Li Moying went silent for a moment and continued speaking. No matter what, she's my fiancée and your mistress. If you still want to follow me around with the contract and leave this lousy mystic region, then you must respect her. Little Qilin drooped its head immediately, apparently not expecting its owner to be so overbearing. It was an ancient spiritual beast with a steamed bloodline, but it actually couldn't be compared to a woman who made one disgusted. However, circumstances were stronger than a man. Li Moying was now its real owner, and no matter how it disliked Huang Yueli, there was no way it could go against its owner. Li Moying raised his arm and carried little Qilin over to Huang Yueli. This time when Huang Yueli stretched out her hand to touch it. Although little Qilin still drooped its head with an unwilling look, but it had no choice but to control itself to lay flat on Li Moying's palm, allowing Huang Yueli to caress it in any way she liked. Huang Yueli originally was curious about how those beautiful scales felt like, but on seeing little Qilin putting on such an unhappy expression, her mood suddenly came and directly carried that thing over and started all sorts of ravage, rubbing and rolling her between her hands, pinching and kneading it. Li Moying knew that she was using this opportunity to vent her anger as he almost burst out laughing. Huang Yueli was playing around with it when she suddenly cried out, "Right, this little thing still doesn't have a name yet. I'm its mistress, so can I give it a name?" Her eyes suddenly turned huge as she stared at Li Moying. Li Moying originally wouldn't reject her, but since she put on a deliberate act of cuteness, it made his heart go soft as he immediately nodded his head. "Of course. What name do you want to give it?" About this, her eyeballs rolled around. Little Qilin suddenly had a bad premonition as it hurriedly struggled to climb away from her hand, crying non-stop. However, Huang Yueli had a tight hold over it as she continued. "Min, look at its pretty scales which are gleaming with gold sparkles. It looks like it's very good at inviting wealth. Let's just gain a complimentary remark. Call it Ifa Kai." Footnotes. It means striking it rich. You can also listen on. When little Qilin heard this name, its eyes opened wide as though it was struck by lightning as it looked at its owner in grief, hoping that he could help it gain back some justice to stop this abnormal bad woman. Whoever knew? PFFFFFD. Li Moying directly spurted as he choked on his saliva. Following that, the words he said directly shattered little Qilin's heart. "All right, it's really a good name. I express extreme like for it. Then in future, Fa Kai will be the newest member in our family." He knew that little Qilin's name wasn't going to be anyway nice, but since the Phoenix was named Wang Kai 1 and the Qilin was named Fa Kai 1, which was rather normal, right? But no matter what it's named, as long as he could coax his fiancée, what would a little sacrifice for the little Qilin matter? Huang Yueli heard his compliments, and her mood indeed lifted up, especially when she saw the little Qilin bearing a pitiful expression as though it was about to faint. She felt especially pleasurable. "HMPF, who asked you to go against me?" There hadn't been any spiritual pet which hadn't been dealt with by this sister. It was the same for a spiritual pet. Huang Yueli ravaged little Qilin for a moment more. Li Moying saw that little Qilin was just too pitiful and finally gave it a little sympathy as he carried it away. Huang Yueli already had enough fun, so she didn't make any resistance. He looked at Li Moying caressing little Qilin, and suddenly, she seemed to have recalled something as she revealed a shocked look. "Right, this little thing doesn't like me, but likes you so much. Could it be that you're the descendant of this cloudy Qilin clan?" Li Moying was stunned. Why would you think in that way? Huang Yueli was originally just letting her thoughts run wild, and just spoke her mind, but being counter-asked by him, the more she thought, the higher the possibility she felt it was true. "Don't you feel that things just happen too coincidentally? You're of the thunder attribute, and earlier when we were at the secret room entrance, that Qilin's virtual image could not even hurt you. Doesn't that mean that your thunder attribute innate talent is so high that it's enough to conquer the Qilin spiritual beast? But why do you have this kind of innate talent? There are only that many practitioner families in Soaring Heaven's continent, but none of their innate talents are comparable to yours. Don't you think you're very ridiculous?" In the past, I didn't understand, but now thinking of it, it is possible that it's because you're a descendant of the Cloudy Qilin clan. The Cloudy Qilin clan rears Qilins, and that already shows that the most powerful genius in the clan must have innate talent, which could suppress the spiritual beasts in order to make them submit. If you have Cloudy Qilin clan's blood, then it is understandable for you to have such innate talent. Moreover speaking, my Wang Kai also mentioned that the bloodline in you is extremely powerful, so much that even he feels fearful. She slowly recollected her memories, feeling that all the bits and pieces of the puzzle were linking the same truth. However, after Li Moying finished listening, he shook his head. "This is merely your imagination. It's virtually impossible to ascertain how it is in reality." "Why is there no way to ascertain?" Huang Yueli pointed at little Qilin in his arms. "Doesn't this little thing here not know anything?" Li Moying shook his head immediately. "Little thing's age is too young. It said that it had just been born for a few days and was sealed here immediately. I've attempted to interact with it earlier, but it doesn't seem to know anything at all. It only said that the thunder attribute on me is extremely powerful, making it felt a sense of familiarity, hence it made a contract with me. Isn't it obvious from what the Chelan said? What's called familiarity. This little Chelan had never left the Cloudy Chelan clan's turf since birth. Only Cloudy Chelan clan's clansmen would let it feel familiar, isn't it? You can also listen on. Lemoyne frowned slightly. This, Huang Yuli could tell that he was wavering as she immediately added. Now that we're in the historical ruins of Cloudy Chelan clan, perhaps we might be able to find some evidence to prove your bloodline. If you're really a descendant of the Cloudy Chelan clan, then perhaps there is some inheritance within the mystic region which only you will be able to get. Just like the inheritance which I obtained in the Inheritance Tower. Huang Yuli was exhilarated as she spoke, apparently very excited and couldn't wait to tug Lemoyne along to search for the inheritance. However, after Lemoyne heard that, he replied in an expressionless look, Lear, I think you might have mislooked a very important matter. If I'm really from the Cloudy Chelan clan, then you're from the Sacred Phoenix race. Huang Yuli blinked as she asked puzzledly, What do you mean? Lemoyne replied, Although we do not know what deep feud there is between these two clans, but even Cloudy Chelan clan's Chelan doesn't want to see you. If we manage to go to God Realm one day, won't the two of us be separated? Huang Yuli went into a blank for a moment and started smiling. I saw. You still say I'm thinking too much. I think you're the one who thinks too much. It's still too early to say if we can ascend to God Realm. In your past life, haven't you spent several decades of time, but still unable to break through to the 10th stage realm? But she suddenly bared her sharp little tiger fangs as she gave a crafty smile. If there's really someone who wants to separate us, what will you do? Lemoyne looked at his little fox's smile as his heart shook and pulled her into his arms. He leaned in close to Huang Yuli's lips and gave a deep laugh. If there's one such day, then we'll elope. What do you think? Elope? It seems so exciting, eh? Huang Yuli smiled sweetly. Lemoyne couldn't help but leaned over and kissed her on her lips. Little Chelan was clamped in between the two of them as it struggled furiously, using its short nails on its little claws to scratch against Lemoyne's arm, but was totally unable to stop the intimacy between the two lovers. As there was no one around, and little Chelan had no beast rights, so Huang Yuli didn't act as coquettish as usual as she stretched out her arms and circled it around Lemoyne's neck, obediently accepting his demanding kiss. The two of them had never thought that Lemoyne's casual words would be realized one day in future. After a long time, Lemoyne finally released the young lady in his arms. Huang Yuli's face was flushed red as she rolled her eyes at him. Carry your F.A. Kai properly. I'm going over to take a look if we've left out any treasures. She made a round in the secret room and discovered several bottles of 8th grade medicinal pills as she kept it away carefully. Turning back, she discovered a small notebook in Lemoyne's hand as he was flipping the pages, reading it. She curiously leaned close to him. What are you reading? Lemoyne was reading as he replied, I found a notebook underneath the rug, and it talks about some things to pay attention to when rearing a Chelan. Huang Yuli heard that and hurriedly replied, That's great. There's actually a guide for rearing. Quickly keep it properly and adhere strictly to what the notebook says. Don't even let F.A. Kai be nurtured into a picky eater, and lack of manners is a no-no, especially disrespecting its owner. As she was saying that, she gritted her teeth as she recalled that disobedient little Wang Kai. Luckily, she had stuffed him into the Sky Phoenix ring. Otherwise, if a phoenix entered the Cloudy Chelan clan's turf, he would turn the sky around. Lemoyne laughed as he shook his head, keeping both the little Chelan and notebook away. You can also listen on. After verifying that nothing valuable was left, the both of them left the secret room. There were at least 180 rooms in the cave dwelling, but Lemoyne and Huang Yuli were people with extremely high sights, so after they ransacked the most valuable treasures in a room, they weren't interested in the leftovers and couldn't be bothered to waste any time to enter room by room to check. The minute they reached the cave dwelling's entrance, Huang Yueli effortlessly activated the array as the both of them walked out together. Outside the cave dwelling, there was no sight of Green Cloud Sect's disciples anywhere. Thinking of it, it seemed that they knew they had no more chances to enter, so they had all dispersed. All right, now, where shall we go? Huang Yueli turned her head back as she asked. Li Moying thought for a moment before replying. We've basically taken a look at the eastern part of the Mystic region, so why not? Let's go for a tour around the west side. Huang Yueli had no objections, and the both of them set off towards the west side of the Mystic region. 7 days later, 7 to 8 eye-piercing light rays flashed past in the sky, and a 7-tier blood feather eagle was struck consecutively by the light rays, giving out a miserable shriek in mid-air as it fell head first onto the ground. Huang Yueli kept applauding. Moying, you're just too amazing, too handsome and suave. Now, can I go and dig my oars? Li Moying nodded. There shouldn't be any danger, so come on over. Huang Yueli hurriedly ran over as she retrieved some tools from her space and started scrapping on the mountain wall. At this moment, a bright white light flashed across the sky from a distance away. The white ray disappeared in an instant, but the area where the white light had appeared caused streams of uninterrupted white smoke. When Li Moying saw this, his body immediately turned stiff. Lyra, something seemed to have happened. Huang Yueli's back was facing him, and she had not noticed the white ray flashing by as she turned her head back in astonishment when she heard that. What's the matter? Li Moying pointed to a distance far away. Did you see that? That celestial light, sex flare signal. Further from the color of it, it seems to be Ji-Yun's flare signal. He must have met a life and death crisis. Before entering the cloudy Qilin mystic region, Sect Master Morong had given each direct disciple a piece of signal flare. It was given so that if they met with a life and death crisis in the mystic region, they could ask for timely help from their same sect members. But Huang Yueli always had her suspicions regarding the usefulness of this kind of signal flares. Because if they were to meet with danger, it would be pretty good if their same sect disciples didn't try to scheme that person. So how many of them would risk their lives to save another person? Moreover, to waste their time seeking for opportunities in the mystic region? Even Huang Yueli herself would not go save someone who wasn't related to her. So ever since entering this place, Huang Yueli had specially collected the signal flares from Mo, E, and the rest of the practitioners whom she was closer with, remodified it, and redistributed it back to them. Those signal flares which had been remodified by her, when lit, would be different from ordinary signal flares. By the smoke, they could easily differentiate who was the owner of the signal flare. Huang Yueli followed the direction of Li Moying's finger, and her expression changed immediately. That's right. It is indeed Junior Brother Luo. What on earth has happened to him? Li Moying replied. Jun had set his heart on experience learning properly. If it wasn't some life-threatening situation, he wouldn't light up the signal flare easily. Looks like his situation is precarious, so I must immediately head over now. Huang Yueli nodded her head. All right, the matter cannot be delayed any further. Let's head over now. Li Moying heard that, and his footsteps halted. You're going along with me? You can also listen on. Huang Yueli casted a glance at him, feeling that what he asked was redundant. Of course, don't tell me you want to leave me behind. Li Moying replied hesitantly. Of course, I don't want to leave you behind. But a place which could leave Ji-Yun in a life-threatening situation might be dangerous. So, I'm worried. Huang Yueli raised her chin up as she replied unhappily. Stop looking down on me. My ability is much stronger than Luo Ji-Yun. Moreover, I'm worried too. The more dangerous the place is, the more I cannot let you go alone. With such a high-leveled armament master like me following you to battle, you should just feel glad about it. All right, stop with the crap. Do you wish to save Junior Brother Luo or not? Li Moying looked at her deeply in the eye. Even though his heart was extremely unwilling, but he knew that he could not stop her. Forget it. So be it if you must tag along. But if there's danger, forget it. Treat as though I didn't say anything. Let's go. Li Moying originally wanted to tell her that if there was any danger, she should run off first, but thinking that saying these were useless because there would be no way that young lass would run off first, so he might as well swallow back his words. Huang Yueli's lips curled upwards as she left alongside him. The direction of the white smoke spiraling was on the other end of the cloudy Qilin mystic region. The two of them raced for the entire journey, and the more they raced, the stranger they felt. Because Luo Jian's position was much further than they thought, and it was extremely close to the center region of the cloudy Qilin mystic region. Strange, why would junior brother Luo run off to such a central area? Hadn't Sect Master Murong already reminded everyone before entering the mystic region that the more central the location is, the more dangerous it gets? Doesn't he know his own ability? He still dared to run off everywhere. Huang Yueli frowned. Li Moying's expression slowly turned grave. This fellow, he's really too reckless. Perhaps he really ran into some huge trouble this time around. Don't run off so quickly, follow right behind me. Huang Yueli knew her own limits, and when she heard that, she slowed down her speed, letting Li Moying go ahead of her. Li Moying became exceptionally cautious as he stopped speeding head first, but carefully observed the surrounding terrain. The two of them ran for another 20 over miles. Huang Yueli suddenly cried out, "Look, there's the remains of a signal flare on the ground. That must have been left behind by junior brother Luo. He should have let out this signal flare from this area." Li Moying walked up quickly as he picked up the external shell of the signal flare, then looking around everywhere. There was no sight of Luo Jian anywhere, but he quickly noticed markings of a fight on the ground. His pitch-black brows creased together. What on earth is going on? Jian was in a battle and let out the signal flare, but in the end, he's not here. Huang Yueli also pointed to those markings as she said, "The battle that happened here must have been extremely intense. Look at those big trees on the ground. The tree trunks are so thick, but yet a lot of these trees have fallen onto the ground. There are many disoriented footprints on the ground, and so much blood has been spilled. Junior brother Luo is probably heavily injured." Li Moying apparently understood this, as well as his heart felt exceptionally heavy. Among so many junior brothers and junior sisters, his relationship with Luo Jian was the deepest, because Luo Jian's character had been the most naive and his guts had always been the smallest. Since young, he was always bullied by Murong and I and the rest, so Li Moying personally guided him a lot, forcing him to grow up slowly. In Li Moying's heart, Luo Jian was no different from his own biological little brother. You can also listen on. Now, Luo Jian had met with danger and his life and death was unknown, which really made him extremely worried. But although he was worried, his rationality had not vanished. Li Moying's character was normally cold and stern, so no matter what kind of situation he encountered, he was always able to maintain his calm. It would usually be matters concerning Huang Yueli's safety which would make him lose control. Right now, he observed the situation around him, and very quickly he came out with a conclusion. The bloodstains on the ground aren't only Ji-Yun's. Those bloodstains over there are obviously left behind for magical beasts. Looks like Ji-Yun had provoked a high-leveled magical beast. They should have ran off toward the east side. So let's head over to have a look. Follow me closely. Li Moying pointed to the east side, indicating Huang Yueli to chase up to his steps. Although he was worried about Huang Yueli taking the risk with him, but the both of them had already reached this place, hence leaving Huang Yueli at this place where the high-leveled magical beast had been before, it was definitely not safe, so it was much better to leave her beside him. The two of them walked one after another following the blood stains as they chased over. Huang Yueli utilized her agility dance steps, following tightly behind Li Moying as her slender brows creased slightly. She didn't know why that there was an ominous premonition in her heart, but somehow there seemed to be someone who was watching them. But every time she returned, she didn't see anyone but didn't know if it was her misperception. But at the very least, they had continued to head towards the east as they entered the cloudy Qilin mystic region's central region's boundary. Heading in further would be even more dangerous. Luo Jian was just too unreliable. He had actually not chosen his path properly while he was panicky. Based on his cultivation, dashing into the central region would really be asking for death. Moreover, as the two of them kept moving into the central region, the surrounding environment had undergone changes. The trees around the surroundings were getting lesser and lesser, But even if there was, it was just a few shrubs which didn't have much leaves. A strange smoke started to condense in the air as their visions became more and more blurry. The situation outside, 100 meters, couldn't be seen clearly anymore. Huang Yueli finally couldn't help but tug Li Moying. Moying, the situation here is quite abnormal. Are we really going to continue probing inside? Li Moying's footsteps took a halt as he frowned. The footsteps which Jian left behind are headed all the way east, and the bloodstains left behind are more and more obvious, which means that his bloodstains are even more serious. If we can't find him before tomorrow, it would absolutely bode ill for him. Huang Yueli said, but if we continue heading inside, we will really be entering the central region. Each mystic region's central region is extremely dangerous, so based on our current ability, we must be extremely careful before proceeding. Li Moying turned his head back and grabbed her hands gently. I understand, but from the bloodstains on the ground, Jian shouldn't have gone far. At most another few hundred meters or no, he would definitely have fallen down. He should be somewhere nearby, so we won't be entering too deep in. Huang Yueli nodded her head. Right at this moment, suddenly, a faintly indiscernible moan was heard. Their spirits were instantly lifted. It's Ji Yun. He's indeed around this area. Quick, we have to hurry over and take a look. Li Moying and Huang Yueli exchanged glances and hastened their footsteps as they sped towards the direction of the sound. What they didn't know were several pairs of eyes tightly fixed onto their backs, right behind them. Damn it! Why did Bairuoli come over as well? Lung Yifeng couldn't help but frowned. You can also listen on. The target who Lung Yifeng wanted to target was Li Moying alone, but he didn't want Huang Yueli to get seriously injured. Although Huang Yueli had disgraced him in front of everyone right in front of the cave dwelling when she decoded the array, but in Lung Yifeng's heart, the one who should die was Li Moying because it was this man who incited Huang Yueli. As for Huang Yueli, she was so young, so beautiful, and had outstanding innate talent. So for such a talented young lady, she naturally wasn't in the wrong. Not only did Lung Yifeng feel that she wasn't in the wrong, he was even more smitten by her because of her array master innate talent. They originally thought that Li Moying would know that the central region was dangerous, and considering Huang Yueli's safety, she absolutely would not bring her along. In the end, whoever would have expected that the two of them actually appeared together at this place? This made Lung Yifeng feel flustered. After all, his target this time was to get Li Moying dead and to get Huang Yueli into his hands, not to make her die. If Huang Yueli got into an accident, then the gains would not make up for the losses. Li Lingchuan totally couldn't be bothered about Huang Yueli's life or death, but seeing Lung Yifeng's anxiety, he advised, "Can't you still tell? Li Moying brings Bairuoli along wherever he goes, so it's very normal for them to appear together. It's great in this way, too. After we have finished dealing with Li Moying, you can show yourself and save her. This is the best chance to act as a hero to save the damsel in distress." Lung Yifeng thought about it and replied, "All right, I'll take your advice. But this Li Moying is really a piece of S******. This is such a dangerous place, and he still insisted on bringing Miss Bai along. He really doesn't know how to treasure her at all. How could he let her take this risk? Miss Bai is really too pitiful for following such a man. I must save her from the fire." As the two of them were discussing this, Murong Fei walked over from not too far away. She lowered her voice as she said, "All right, I've seen it with my own eyes that fifth senior brother fell down from the cliff, and everything had been arranged. After the matter is done, don't forget what you promised me." The two of them exchanged glances and hurriedly nodded as they patted their chests as a proof of guarantee. "Relax, after they fall down from the cliff. Mr. Lung will bring Miss Bai away. Then you can tell your eldest senior brother that she's already dead. I guarantee that Li Moying won't be able to find Bairuoli, and this secret would never be exposed, so you can take advantage of this chance to win his heart." "That's right. Haven't we agreed on this beforehand? Our motives are unanimous, which is to separate the both of them forever. I want Bairuoli, and you want Li Moying, to each our gains." After Lung Yifeng and Li Lingchuan formed an alliance, in order to ensure the smoothness of the plan, so they made use of Morong Fei. But they naturally weren't so silly to tell Morong Fei that their real motive was to kill Li Moying. They had been cheating her, making her think that their motive was to bring Huang Yueli away. It was Morong Fei's wishful thinking that as long as Huang Yueli left, she would have a chance, but she totally didn't think that she would be tricked by them. Now hearing the two men's guarantee, she didn't suspect them as a smile finally appeared on her lips. HMPF, this little slut tried her best to tangle around eldest senior brother, even using the trick of climbing up his bed to get engaged to him. But so what about it? Wasn't the person who had the last laugh still her, Morong Fei? But wasn't Bairuoli's romance too prosperous? Even a young master from a large family like Lung Yifeng actually wanted to get her? You can also listen on. Was so good about that wretched lass. Morong Fei thought about it hatefully, and the more she thought, the more jealous she became. Why was it that she had gained all the advantages? Her innate talent was strong in every aspect, and she was so beautiful. Not only Li Moying treated her with deep sentiments, even a respectable young master like Lung Yifeng was intent on getting her. It really was an infuriating thing to compare between them. Morong Fei's heart suddenly arose a thought. If only there wasn't a Bairuoli, if only she could completely disappear from this world. This thought sizzled and infested vigorously in her mind. Moreover, this was a heavenly chance. The central region was such a dangerous place. She only needed to rig up a scam, and she would be able to let this wretched lass die in this place. If Lung Yifeng were to bring Huang Yueli away, perhaps she might still return, but if she really died, then she would really not be able to fight with her. The more Morong Fei thought, the more excited she got as she started to devise the evil plan in her mind. Two men and one lady smiled while looking at each other and seemed as though they had derived an agreement. But in actual fact, each of them harbored designs in their own hearts. Right now, not too far away, a flash of firelight flashed across. Especially when several claps of thunder struck across the sky, it gave out a deafening sound as it made everyone jump up in fright. That's great. Li Moying seems like he's already hooked. Quickly head over and take a look. The three of them carefully concealed themselves as they sneaked over. Huang Yueli and Li Moying headed towards the direction where Luo Jiyun cried out, and after running for a few hundred meters, they suddenly stopped. The two revealed a shocked expression on their faces, because right in front of them was a cliff. As they were nearer to the central region, the surroundings were covered by the fog, and they were totally unable to see far away, so they had not noticed this earlier. The angle of the cliff was practically vertical without any slopes, so it was imaginable that if they fell down, they would directly fall into the depths of the valley. What made one even more uneasy was due to the fog. They could only see the situation several hundred meters below. It was evident that the depth of the cliff was not a mere 100 meters. How deep it was below was totally unforeseeable. Hence, there was no way to make any useful judgment on the condition of the cliff below. When Li Moying saw this scenario, he frowned and shouted towards the bottom of the cliff. "Fifth junior brother, are you below? If you are, make a sound to let me know." He had just said finished when a joyous voice was heard from below. "Oh, eldest senior brother, it's really you." Luo Jiyun sounded very weak, so his voice was breathless, but this bit of voice to a practitioner was enough. Li Moying and Huang Yueli heaved a sigh of relief because this voice sounded not too far away from them. It seemed that Luo Jiyun had not really fallen into the bottom of the valley. Li Moying asked again, "How is your current situation? What position are you in? Speak clearly so that we can save you." Luo Jiyun panted while he talked. "I fell down from the other end of the mountain path. Earlier, I was pursued by a 7th-tier magical beast and didn't see the road in front clearly, so I rolled down directly. Luckily for me, there was a large piece of rock by the time, and it blocked my fall so I managed to retain my life. But my lower body is stuck in the rock, totally immovable. However, I have no way to climb up." Li Moying replied immediately, "You don't need to worry. I'll bring you up. You can also listen on." Li Moying turned his head and took a glance at Huang Yueli. "Lier, I'm heading down to take a look at the situation. You stay above. Huang Yuli nodded her head as she drew out a coil of rope from the Sky Phoenix ring and said, I refined this coil of immortal binding rope some time ago. It is refined using 1,000-year-old fiery spider thread and cannot be severed by profound weapons which are 5th tier and below. Bind it around your waist before you go down. So if you meet with any trouble, I could try to find a way to pull you up. Li Moying smiled as he said, All right, then I'll head down right now. Huang Yueli tied one end of the immortal binding rope to a tall old tree and later stood at the front of the cliff as she watched the coil of rope untangled slowly as it slipped down the cliff along the way. Although the fog was so huge that she could no longer see Li Moying's figure, but she could still see from the tautness of the rope to figure out how deep he had gone. Huang Yueli's eyes were fixed on the rope when suddenly an uneasy and confused feeling became more evident in her heart. Her premonition had always been accurate, and she wouldn't get uneasy for no reason. Could it be that Li Moying would get into an accident? Li Moying hung on to the cliff as he went straight down. After descending for 1 kilometer or so, he finally caught sight of Luo Jian. He was indeed in the exact situation as what he had described, stuck in between 2 pieces of rocks, just short of falling down. Luckily, these 2 rocks were huge and looked rather stable, which had impacted Luo Jian's descent, allowing him to preserve his life. Although this was so, but Luo Jian's condition was extremely bad. There were all sorts of injuries and wounds on him, and his blood kept spurting outwards, staining his clothes entirely red. As he had lost too much blood, his complexion had turned extremely pale, especially his lips, which had turned white, looking no different from a ghost. Furthermore, the worst of all was that Li Moying could sense that the fluctuations of Luo Jian's profound energy was extremely unstable. This was the initial sign of heavily injured meridians, and furthermore, his cultivation had drastically dropped, descending by a total of 2 small realms. This was a perilous situation, and if he wasn't able to save him out in time, and to get on with treatment to treat the damages on his meridians, it might have a detrimental effect towards Luo Jian's future cultivation. When Luo Jian saw Li Moying, he was so agitated that he cried out. He choked as he called, Eldest senior brother, you really came to save me. Frankly speaking, when Luo Jian was stuck in midair, he had already been waiting for 4 hours, and in his heart, he had already lost all hope. Although the signal bomb was thrown out, but he really didn't have any hope that Li Moying would really make in time to save him. After all, he had not chosen the proper path this time, while he was in a panic and accidentally barged into the central region of the Mystic region, and he had entered in too deeply. To meet with danger in such a place was like destined to be a goner. Even if it was Li Moying, if he took the risk to come save him, it would be more or less of a dead end. Luo Jian was feeling regretful that he had thrown out the signal bomb, because when Li Moying appeared, while he was feeling touched, he was also extremely worried that he would drag Li Moying down. Eldest senior brother, you shouldn't have come. This is the central region of the cloudy Chilan Mystic region. It's too dangerous. You'd better hurry on and leave. Li Moying's expression sank. What joke are you cracking? It was with great difficulty that I've finally reached this place. Just to save you. You want me to leave just like that? You can also listen on. But Luo Jian lowered his head. Even if you manage to save me, it's difficult for me to leave by myself. My leg has already been broken into several pieces and my meridians are heavily injured, so I can't even summon up any profound energy, can't get up this cliff. This place is so far away from the peak, and even if eldest senior brother you want to pull me up, it's almost impossible, right? When Li Moying heard that, his brows rose, and he secretly felt a little fortunate. When he descended, he had not expected Luo Jian to be so seriously injured, not even able to work up any profound energy. If he had met with this sort of ad hoc situation, it really wasn't easy to deal with at all. Luckily, he brought along Huang Yueli's immortal binding rope, so things were much easier. He didn't say anything, and Luo Jian misunderstood his intention. Eldest senior brother, I know that this matter isn't easy. "You'd better go on up first. Don't stay around here. It's really very dangerous. I can sense that below this cliff, there's a horrifying existence of something, and moreover, sometimes they would fly upwards. My life will be ending here anyway, so eldest senior brother, please don't be dragged down by me." Lemoyne frowned as he cut him off. "All right, stop nagging. I said I can save you, so there's absolutely no problem. Y and amp. GT. Do you feel that your senior brother, I don't have the means to do so?" Luo Jiun hurriedly shook his head. "No, it's not that, but stop with the buts. Where are you stuck exactly? I'll first think of a way to pull you out," Lemoyne said. Luo Jiun heard the resoluteness in his voice, and he knew that once Lemoyne had a decision, other than Huang Yueli, everyone else can forget about changing his mind. He could only reply, "This stone on my chest is allowing me to remain stuck in between these two rocks. I don't dare move. If I move, this rock will nudge, and if it falls, then I too will fall." Lemoyne heard his description, and without a change in his expression, he concentrated on sizing up the rock pile, which was below Luo Jian. Alas, the fog below the cliff was even thicker, hence the sunlight totally didn't reflect this area, hence it was especially dark. He and Luo Jian were only 10 over meters apart, but due to the angle and light, he was still unable to clearly see the situation at Luo Jian's side. Lemoyne's finger flicked, and a light ray flew out from his fingertip as it went around the cliff wall and flew towards Luo Jian, revolving one round around his body as it illuminated the surroundings, allowing Lemoyne to borrow the light to check things out clearly. When Luo Jian saw that, his expression changed immediately and cried out urgently, "Eldest senior brother, don't quickly extinguish that light." Lemoyne was stunned momentarily. "What? Below?" Lemoyne was just trying to comprehend the reason when he heard a roaring sound coming from the bottom of the cliff. Immediately, a sinister-looking magical beast came flying from below the rock, directly charging towards Lemoyne's direction. This magical beast was radiating a blue-purplish glow entirely, and its body was thin, but it had a pair of huge wings which spread out to a total of 10 over meters. Its two bronze bell eyes popped out from the side and looked extremely ugly. Even Lemoyne couldn't recognize what magical beast that was. Even with his experience from both lifetimes, he actually had not seen it before. Whereas this magical beast apparently belonged to one with the thunder attribute. The minute it saw Lemoyne release a small bundle of lightning, it immediately pounced upwards as it swallowed it into its tummy in one mouthful. You can also listen on. Lemoyne's thunder attribute, profound energy, was extremely pure, and after the magical beast swallowed it down in one gulp, its eyes instantly appeared an expression which looked like it could have sufficient meal. The next moment, it turned towards Lemoyne, and its large eyes fixated on him, with an insatiable greed sizing him up, as though it was gauging what the taste of having him in its tummy would feel like. Not long later, it seemed to have completed its evaluation as it suddenly charged towards Lemoyne's direction. Luo Jiun was shocked by this strange and powerful high-level magical beast that his soul almost flew out as he went stiff entirely, his back drenched in sweat, but yet still unable to move, worried that this magical beast would fly into a rage and swallow him alive at the next moment. Whoever knew that this magical beast totally didn't put its attention on him at all. Instead, it turned around and left. Luo Jiun had yet to heave a sigh of relief when he saw it pouncing towards Lemoyne. He cried out in inconsolable shock, "Eldest senior brother, be careful." However, the thunder-attributed magical beast speed was shockingly fast, like a bolt of lightning. Before Luo Jiun had finished his words, it had already appeared right in front of Lemoyne. Lemoyne's eyes were slightly closed as his expression was chilly, and there was no change in his expression, as though he had not sensed that austere energy which came charging towards him. It was until the magical beast's sharp beak was merely just an inch away before his wrist turned and suddenly struck out his sword. The light amethyst sword was a half-god relic and coordinated with Lemoyne's powerful thunder-attributed innate talent. His destructive power was so strong that it was heaven-defying. In just one strike, a dazzling thunder rainbow rushed up into the sky and instantly slashed into the magical beast's huge body. The magical beast was not able to evade in time, and its right wing was slashed broken directly as blood started to spurt outwards. GAG8 dash. It gave out several husky and mournful, miserable shrieks, which hurt Li Moying and Luo Jiyun's eardrums. At the same time, the heavily injured magical beast grew even more infuriated as it charged towards Li Moying without a care for anything else. But alas, it was heavily injured in its prime state, so now that it had sustained such a heavy injury, all the more it wasn't his match. Li Moying struck out consecutively as he easily evaded its attacks. Magical Beast shrieked out miserably as it fell down to the bottom of the valley, its whereabouts unknown. Luo Jiyun had been keeping an eye on the battle right from the start, and his heart was just jumping behind his throat, worried that at the next moment he would see Li Moying splayed with blood. However, reality had surpassed his imagination. Li Moying had not spent too much effort and had defeated the magical beast, additionally giving it a fatal blow. Heaven knew that this magical beast was at least 7th tier. 7th-tiered magical beast battle power was equivalent to a human's 8th-stage realm practitioner. Li Moying was merely in the 7th-stage realm, so this situation was equivalent to a cross-realm battle. In the end, he had not only won, but won so easily. It seemed like it was just a matter of lifting his finger that easy, as though he had the ability to manage that magical beast even if it was stronger than him by several times. What kind of situation was this? He knew that his eldest senior brother was strong, very strong, extremely strong, but wasn't this a little too heaven-defying? Luo Jiyun was still in a daze when Li Moying had already carefully stepped on the rocks and reached a place which was close to him. What daze are you still in? Let's hurry and leave this place. Give me your hand, and I'll pull you up. You can also listen on. Luo Jiyun then recollected his senses as he lowered his head to take a look at those few pieces of stones which were holding him up, feeling uneasy about it. But, eldest senior brother, I'm still worried. No need to worry. I've already checked out the situation on your side, so relax. I can hold on to you. Talk after you come up. Li Moying stretched out his arm, and Luo Jiyun let go of his right hand, which was grabbing onto the side of the rock fearfully, slowly stretching out his arm towards Li Moying. Li Moying grabbed him, and a powerful gust of profound energy surged in from Luo Jiyun's arm's meridians, instantly opening access to a few meridians which were blocked due to his heavy injury. Luo Jiyun cried out in shock. He only felt extreme pain from the overbearing profound energy which had invaded into his meridians, as his entire body's blood seemed as though it was burning. But at the same time, he sensed that his entire body was filled with energy, and that abundance feeling of energy was something which he had never experienced even before he was injured. This kind of pain and stimulated feeling was just too strange, and Luo Jiyun suddenly felt a light and airy feeling. Li Moying howled softly. Cast away those few rocks, and use your strength to step on those rocks at the bottom to climb up. Quick! This condition will not last too long, otherwise your meridians will not be able to take it. It was after all an external force which was forcefully irrigated, plus the fact that Luo Jiyun's meridians were still severely injured. If time dragged on, his internal injuries would become much worse. Luo Jiyun's body shook as he hurriedly summoned up the profound energy in his body which Li Moying had injected, suddenly raising his power to shake away those few pieces of rocks which held him up. In this way, his body lost support and fell down directly. Luckily, Li Moying was holding on to him tightly from the top, and Luo Jiyun followed the strength from his hand as he borrowed the strength from his feet to climb up the cliff. Clack, clack. His lower body had originally suffered fracture, and using strength forcefully right now was akin to using a file to rub in between his flesh and bones, causing Luo Jiyun in so much pain that he sweated profusely. But he clenched onto his teeth tightly as he endured the pain and continued putting in strength. Luckily, the rock was rather stable, so even if it endured both people's strength, it was still rock solid. The two of them heaved a sigh of relief. Luo Jiyun was drenched in sweat, totally, plus the bones on both his legs had broken into several parts. There was no way for him to stand up as he totally laid limp on the rock. Li Moying checked on the injuries on his body gloomily as he retrieved several bottles of pills from his realm ring, casting it into Luo Jiyun's arms. Quickly take the medication. These pills staunch bleeding and pain, grow flesh, replenish profound energy. Everything's there. Take 3 pills per bottle right now. And the green ceramic bottle is external ointment. Apply it on your wounds first. This fracture of yours is simply too serious, so we can't treat it here. Take the medication first, and after you feel a little better, we'll head up immediately and find a place to treat your injuries. Luo Jian grabbed onto the bottle tightly, and after he opened the bottle, his eyes opened up wide. These are all 6th-level medicinal pills. Eldest senior brother, these are just too valuable. 6th-level medicinal pills. In our sect, we need a huge amount of contribution points before we can exchange for it, and it's virtually impossible to auction for these without several hundred thousands of high-grade spiritual stones in the auction house. You can also listen on. Luo Jiyun's fingers were shaking as he looked at Li Moying in disbelief. Eldest senior brother, have you taken the wrong bottles? These are such valuable pills, and you actually gave me the entire bottle? Li Moying threw an undisturbed glance at him. Why talk so much rubbish when I ask you to eat? 6th-level medicinal pills take effect much faster so that you can hang on. Otherwise, perhaps in the mid of the mountain, you might not be able to take it and faint. By then, how am I supposed to bring you away from here? But, Luo Jiyun was still flabbergasted as he looked at Li Moying in a disheveled look. He understood what eldest senior brother said, but these were all 6th-level medicinal pills. Li Moying couldn't help but shook his head as he said, "These pills are something which your sister-in-law asked me to bring along for you. Don't hate to part with these because all she has on her mind is to save you. If you still feel bad about it, then after you go up, thank you personally. In future, when I'm not around, help me protect her properly. That will do." Ah, these pills are from sister-in-law. Armament masters are just too rich. Luo Jiyun's expression was filled with astonishment when he heard that the pills were from Huang Yueli. He was filled with envy and admiration toward her. Eldest senior brother's fiancée was really too powerful. She could even freely give out 6th-level medicinal pills. Just how rich was she? In the past, he felt that this young lass from South Yu Kingdom was unworthy of his eldest senior brother, but recently everything about her made him feel that his eldest senior brother seemed to have linked up with a wealthy woman. That was one of the advantages of being handsome. Li Moying felt his hair standing from his gaze and asked curiously, "What are you looking at me for? Still not going to take the pills quickly?" Luo Jiyun was grazed by his chilly glance as he lowered his head guiltily and grabbed the pills, stuffing it into his mouth. 6th-level medicinal pills indeed had outstanding effects. Not long after Luo Jiyun had swallowed it down, his complexion seemed to have taken a better turn and the pain from his body seemed to have lessened. While waiting for him to recover, Li Moying's arms were crossed as he leaned against the cliff and questioned, "What on earth happened to you? I've obviously reminded you several times after entering the Mystic region. The central region of the Mystic region is the most dangerous part, and even 9th-stage realm-top exponents aren't guaranteed to be able to leave safely. You're merely in the 5th-stage realm, so why did you run over here for? Don't you want to live anymore?" Luo Jiyun was berated by him, feeling both self-reproach and guilt as he didn't dare to lift up his head. "Eldest senior brother, it's my fault. Not only have I gotten myself into trouble, I've even caused trouble to you and sister-in-law to come and save me. But the situation then was rather chaotic, so I had no time to hesitate, just thinking of saving the person." "Save the person?" Li Moying's brows rose in curiosity. "Save who?" Luo Jiyun explained. "Right after I left the cave dwelling, I've been searching for opportunities in the eastern region, and later on, I met 3rd senior sister." Li Moying's brows uncontrollably creased together. "Murong Fei?" Luo Jiyun nodded. 3rd senior sister said that she had gotten a copy of a treasure map and knew that the place on the treasure map of a cloudy Chilean senior was not too far away. But if she headed there alone, she was worried that something might happen, and so luckily she met me. So she wanted me to head over with her. So you went along with her? All right. I had not thought about the location of the treasure map at that time. In the end, as we walked, we reached an area which was very near the central region. I was worried that we would get into trouble after trying to barge in, but third senior sister comforted me that she had the treasure map and the surroundings were very safe. You can also listen on. Lemoyne didn't say a word as he waited for Luo Jiyun to continue. Luo Jiyun continued. Third senior sister's ability and knowledge are much stronger than mine, so I thought what she said would definitely not be wrong. Whoever knew that we had just reached the location of the marking on the map when an accident happened. A seventh-tiered magical beast pounced out from the forest, charging directly towards third senior sister. He raised his head and took a look at Lemoyne cautiously. Our abilities could not match up, and the two of us were not the seventh-tiered magical beast opponent, so third miss just turned around and escaped. In order to save her, I followed closely behind. But I'd not expected third senior sister to not choose her way properly and actually ran all the way into the central region. I had totally not considered too much at that time, so even though I knew it was the central region, I had no choice but to enter this place at that life-threatening moment. Later on, we were fighting as we were escaping for our lives, and unknowingly, we reached the side of this cliff. I didn't look where my feet were and fell down immediately. Luckily, third senior sister didn't fall down as well, but that seventh-level magical beast was still pursuing after her, so I wonder if she has escaped or not. Speaking to this point, Luo Jiyun seemed to recall something as he turned his head towards Lemoyne. Eldest senior brother, when you came over earlier, did you see third senior sister? I wonder how is she right now? Later after we go up, can you go and save her? Lemoyne swept a glance at him as the depth of his eyes was deep and cold. You've already turned into this state, and you still want to go save her. Luo Jiyun continued. Eldest senior brother, I know third senior sister had been disrespectful towards sister-in-law on several occasions, and she was indeed too much, but she is after all Master's daughter, so if she were to die in the cloudy Chilean mystic region, what would happen if Master blames it on us? Lemoyne gave a cold laugh. Even if she died here, she can only blame herself for it. Could she blame anyone else? Luo Jiyun advised again. Furthermore, third senior sister has a piece of treasure map in her hands, and we haven't got time to go search for the treasure. So if we saved her, eldest senior brother, you wouldn't end up with nothing as well. Lemoyne narrowed his eyes as he stared at him coldly. Luo Jiyun felt a chill running down his spine from his stare as he sweated profusely, speaking in fear and trepidation. Eldest senior brother? Lemoyne was so angry that he laughed as he looked at Luo Jiyun with a look which seemed as though he resented him for failing to meet his expectations. I really want to split open your head to see if it's filled with water inside. You've been sold, and yet still helping the seller to count money? Luo Jiyun revealed a blank expression. Lemoyne burst out laughing. How could anything ever happen to Morong Fei? She intentionally lured you over and caused you to fall down the cliff. What could have happened to her? She'd probably gone off to celebrate somewhere. As for what treasure map, it's just a lure to hook you, yet you're still thinking of going to search for some treasure? You'd better first try to think of a way to get out of here. Luo Jiyun still didn't quite understand what happened as he stood in a daze, and after pondering over it for a while, he started to become clear on what had happened. What you mean is that third senior sister lied to me? Why would she lie to me? This is very hard to say. From the looks of it, there's a 99% chance that she's trying to lure me over to save you. Now that both of us are stuck in the central region, if we can't get out, who will be the biggest beneficiary? Lemoyne said to this point, and his brows suddenly creased as he felt alarmed. He suddenly recalled that when he came down to save him, he had left Huang Yueli alone on the top of the cliff, whereas it had not been the first attempt which Morong Fei tried to kill Huang Yueli. Yet now Lier was all by herself. You can also listen on. This absolutely gave her the chance to take advantage of the situation. Could it be that Murong Fei's target was actually Liu? Li Moying instantly became anxious as he raised his head up towards the mountain and shouted, "Liu, are you there?" The fog around the cliff was very thick, and he couldn't see the situation on the top of the mountain, so his heart was pounding hard. Luckily, not too long later, Huang Yueli's voice was heard coming from the top. "I've been waiting for you guys. Have you found Junior Brother Luo? The fog is getting thicker, and the sky is turning darker too. It's too dangerous in the central region, because we don't know what will happen at night. While the sky hasn't turned dark entirely. Hurry and get up here." Her voice was emitted from such a high place, and although it sounded a little blurry, but he could still tell that her condition was quite well. Her tone was peaceful, not sounding like she was being pursued by someone. Li Moying heaved a long sigh and immediately frowned again. Looked like Murong Fei's target wasn't Huang Yueli. Then why did she do that? The more he thought, the more uneasy he got as he turned back and looked at Luo Jian. "How is it? How much have you recovered?" Luo Jian had a despondent look on his face. Apparently, he had not recovered from the shock for being cheated by Murong Fei. He had a kind character, always assuming that all of them were from the same sect, and Murong Fei was a lady, so no matter how jealous she was, she couldn't possibly breed hatred from love, or even harming one's life. In the end, he was just too naive. Hearing Li Moying words, he suddenly recollected his senses as he replied in a hurry. "I've recovered about 20% of my profound energy. Only my legs still wouldn't move. It might be hard for me to climb up." "Eldest senior brother, why not you go up first? The day is indeed turning dark, and little sister-in-law is not safe alone by herself." Li Moying's brows lifted, and he was just about to say something. Suddenly, he felt a burst of intense, profound energy fluctuation attacking from behind him. Luo Jiyun's expression changed abruptly as he cried out in shock, "Eldest senior brother, behind you!" Li Moying's reaction was extremely swift as he immediately turned around, evaded, pulled out his sword and stuck out, all at one go. The amethyst light sword suddenly flashed past and struck the sneaky magical beast, which had charged an attack behind his back. Ga. Ga. Miserable shrills were heard amidst the sinisterly bitter wind. After Li Moying had seen the situation in front of him clearly, his pupils suddenly contracted. This time, the magical beasts which flew upwards from the bottom of the valley had at least 7 to 8 of them, as they all had pitch-black forms. Other than the 7th-tiered magical beast that resembled an eagle, which had been killed by him, there were several other different shapes of flying magical beasts, most of the species which he had never seen before. Moreover, in this batch of magical beasts, the lowest tiered was 6th tier, and the highest had already reached 8th tier. In actually fact, if there was only one 8th-tiered magical beast, he wasn't afraid. But now there were so many magical beasts which surrounded them. Moreover, from the saturation of the fog below the cliff, it was unknown to how many other magical beasts were there hiding there. This situation made Li Moying feel an immense feeling of crisis. Luo Jiyun was scared out of his wits as his complexion turned pearly white while his entire body started to tremble. These magical beasts would gather over the minute. They sensed profound energy fluctuations. I met one when I first fell down and was almost killed by it. It must have been that magical beast which you killed earlier which caused the intense fluctuations, which is why so many of them were attracted over. These magical beasts' eyes were all drooling as though Li Moying was some scrumptious meal. You can also listen on. Li Moying faced so many high-level magical beasts, but he wasn't the least flustered. The expression on his face turned graver as he started to work up the profound energy throughout his body, accumulating the power while waiting like a taut bow. The magical beasts seemed to sense the dangerous, imposing manner which was extruding from him as they didn't dare to make any unnecessary movements momentarily. Both sides were to stand still for a period of time, and Luo Jiyun almost forgot to breathe as his heart was beating so fast that it almost jumped out. Suddenly, the magical beasts seemed as though they had observed enough and losing their patience. They cried out, G-A-J several times, and all of them pounced towards Li Moying at the same time. Dark shadows in the sky were about to drown Li Moying's body completely in a blink of an eye, under the enclosure of the huge wings from those magical beasts. Li Moying's body seemed so tiny, as though it would be crushed to dust any time. Luo Jian was so scared that he daren't look, faltering as he shut his eyes. But the next moment, he heard miserable cries from the birds, ringing throughout the entire valley. Luo Jian hastily opened his eyes as he saw bolts of lightning descend from the sky, turning the dark sky as bright as broad daylight. All the lightning converged into a piece of blue-purplish lightning as it carried a powerful aura, gathering into a huge light ball in Li Moying's hands. Luo Jian's heart was alarmed as he trembled in fear while looking at that light ball. Just looking at it alone, he was able to sense the shockingly terrifying energy contained in it. Those flying magical beasts which were charging towards him sensed danger, and their speed suddenly decreased as it flapped its wings, hovering still in midair, as though it didn't know if it should continue or proceed ahead. However, Li Moying didn't give them any chance to hesitate, as the light ball in his hand had accumulated a vast amount of energy in an extremely short span of time. Following that, his eyes were like electricity as he gave a sharp shout, throwing out that light ball towards that group of magical beasts. The light ball shot to the front at an extremely swift speed, shocking those magical beasts so much that it all dispersed while escaping. But it was too late for it to escape now. The light ball had exploded in the middle of the magical beasts, and the thunder-attributed energy, which was contained in it, exploded in an instant. A boom sound reverberated and followed. There were sharp cries and miserable shrieks from those flying magical beasts, as well as Luo Jian sniffed and somehow felt that he smelled the fragrance of roasted meat. Among the 8 flying magical beasts, the 2 which were in the front were instantly heavily injured as it shrilled in shock while it fell into the valley. Although the remaining 6 were slightly injured, but they were all awed by Li Moying's move as all of them scurried backwards in shock, not daring to get any closer. But although they had all temporarily retreated, they did not leave at all, merely hiding in a slightly further place as all of them kept a watchful eye on Li Moying. The greed in their eyes had not lessened. Instead, it increased. Evidently, the huge thunder-attributed energy which Li Moying lured had shocked them, but on the other hand, it also attracted their lust. Such powerful and pure energy was something which these magical beasts had hoped for in a long time. Although it was dangerous, but with such a huge temptation in front of their eyes, which of them could bear to leave like that? Li Moying frowned slightly on seeing these magical beasts' covetous lust in their eyes. He knew that things were not going to go well. Earlier, the energy which he had attracted was much stronger than before, and later on there would be even more magical beasts which were attracted by it. In order to push them back, he would need to erupt an even stronger energy, which would continue to lure new magical beasts. If this continued, when would there be an end to it? You can also listen on. He immediately turned his head back and said to Luo Jian, "All right, stop staying in a daze. Take this opportunity now when they don't dare to approach us. We must leave immediately." Luo Jian understood that the situation was in peril and immediately nodded his head. "I understand." Actually, many wounds on his body were still in extreme pain, and his meridians were full of holes, so he could not muster up his profound energy at all. But he also knew that if they don't leave now, they would definitely end up as the magical beast food later on. So he forcibly summoned up his breath as he clenched his teeth, trying to prop up that broken body of his and follow Li Moying to leave this place. However, he had just moved a little distance when he couldn't help but gave a miserable cry as his entire body perfused with sweat, falling onto the ground. Luo Jian had already tried his utmost best to get up, but certain things were just not curbed based on his own determination. The bones in his feet had already been broken into several segments, and he was totally unable to work up his profound energy, so no one would be able to use their strength to move like that. Luo Jian's expression turned deadly pale. Oh, eldest senior brother, I really cannot move. You'd better go on up first. I, I cannot drag you down. Lemoyne frowned. What silly things are you saying? Ray, really? Those magical beasts are coveting eldest senior brother. Your profound energy, which is why they gathered around here. Perhaps after you left, they would automatically disperse. Those magical beasts would not be interested in a half-dead cripple like me, so rest assured. Luo Jian knew that he was definitely a goner and didn't want to drag Lemoyne down, so he intentionally said this. But in actual fact, anyone knew that if he continued staying here, he would absolutely die. Just at this moment, Huang Yueli's anxious voice was heard from the top of the cliff. Moing? Moing? How are you now? Why are there such terrifying cries coming from below? There's such strong thunder-attributed fluctuations as well. Are you being attacked? Luo Jian looked at Lemoyne's expression, which had instantly turned worried, and gave a ghastly smile. Eldest senior brother, quickly head up. Little sister-in-law is still waiting for you up there. When these magical beasts get tangled with you, then you'd really not be able to leave. Who will take care of little sister-in-law? He knew that for Huang Yueli, Lemoyne would definitely not allow himself to die here, so... Shut up. Lemoyne called out sharply to stop him from continuing. Following that, he shot up like an arrow as he unleashed the immortal binding rope from his waist, which Huang Yueli had stuffed to him as he tied it around Luo Jian's waist. Luo Jian looked at his actions in a daze. Eldest senior brother, this is Lemoyne narked. Stop moving around. I'll get your sister-in-law to pull you up. Luo Jian was puzzled beyond words. Lemoyne had already raised up his head as he shouted to the top. Lear, we're fine. Jian is seriously injured, and he totally can't move. Use the immortal binding rope and pull him up first. Huang Yueli's shocked voice was heard, and immediately after, all right, secure him tightly and pull the rope 3 times consecutively. I'll then start pulling him up. Lemoyne's movements were very fast, and within a few breaths of time, he had already tied Luo Jian into a rice dumpling. After checking the knot on Luo Jian, he pulled the rope consecutively for 3 times. Luo Jian originally couldn't move, and now that he was tied up so securely, he felt as though he was like a piece of pork belly which was waiting to be butchered by others. His expression turned slightly green. Eldest senior brother, are you certain that little sister-in-law is able to pull me up? You can also listen on. Lemoyne gave him a hard stare. Stop acting silly. Your sister-in-law is a 5th-stage realm practitioner. How heavy are you? Is she not able to pull you? Saying that, Luo Jian's body was lifted up by a chunk, and the speed was swift. Furthermore, it was very stable. Apparently, the person who pulled the rope had a lot of strength, with remaining energy left over. His body kept on rising up bit by bit. Right now, he was no longer concerned about his own safety as he turned to look at Lemoyne. Just one look, and his expression changed abruptly, because those few flying magical beasts which were hiding in alertness far away had actually crowded around him again, and furthermore, several new magical beasts appeared in the middle of the sky. Eldest senior brother, you'd better let sister-in-law let me down and pull you up first. You're in this state. What will happen later? Lemoyne swept him a glance, and with a biting cold tone, go up. Don't drag my leg. I naturally have my own means to get out of danger. But Luo Jian wanted to say more, but Huang Yueli's speed in pulling him up was very fast as his body was lifted yet another distance again. The distance between him and Lemoyne was pulled away fast, almost to the point of not able to see each other's figures any longer. In the thick fog, he could only see Lemoyne facing that group of magical beasts yet again, and the cold but aloof expression on that good-looking face was filled with a thick murderous intent. Following that, he continued to rise up and could no longer see Lemoyne anymore. Not long after, Luo Jian went past the thick fog and could see the peak of the cliff indistinctly. Out of his expectations, Huang Yueli was not the one who tugged at the rope tightly, but she was seated by the side of the cliff as her hands propped up her cheeks, using a pair of watery large eyes staring anxiously and in anticipation towards the bottom of the cliff. By her side was a small-sized pinion mechanism, and there was a piece of magical beast crystal core, which was supplying the energy. The rope which was tied on a Luo Jiyun was linked to that mechanism as he was pulled up bit by bit. Luo Jiyun gasped with his mouth wide open, thinking to himself that it was no wonder that the speed of his ascent was so uniform. So, this was indeed the ability of an armament master. Huang Yueli looked at his figure and gave a shrill of joy. Junior brother Luo, you've successfully gotten out of the perilous situation. That's great. But following that, her vision swept below Luo Jiyun as her heart thumped hard, revealing a disappointed expression. Where's Moying? He still hasn't come up? Luo Jian heard her question, and his heart pounded wildly as the scenario of Li Moying's chilly expression while facing that group of magical beasts appeared right in front of his eyes. He simply could not imagine that if he was in Li Moying's position, what kind of outcome would that be? He would probably have died without a full corpse by now, but the person who was covering a retreat below was Li Moying. Would eldest senior brother be able to successfully come through? Luo Jiyun usually believed in his eldest senior brother a lot, but today he didn't dare to guarantee that Li Moying would be able to win. Gazing at Huang Yueli's little face, which was filled with anticipation, Luo Jiyun's throat seemed to be stuffed as he totally couldn't make any sound at all. He really didn't know how he should answer this question. Should he tell Huang Yueli that eldest senior brother had thrown himself into a precarious situation in order to save him and the chances of survival were very limited? Just how much of a shock would that be to his little sister-in-law? Huang Yueli saw that he didn't reply and somehow had an ominous premonition as her lips pursed up. She was just about to ask again, but at this moment, something happened. She suddenly sensed a strong wind rising from her back, and a burst of intense and sharp, profound energy was casted towards her direction swiftly. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli's attention was entirely placed on Luo Jiyun, who was on the cliff and had not expected anyone to suddenly attack her from behind. She had originally still maintained a bit of alertness, but after staying on the top of the cliff for such a long time, she had not met with any danger, hence there was a silent consent that it was absolutely safe at the top of the cliff. At the current moment, to be attacked suddenly really could be said as she was caught totally unprepared. However, her experience in battles was especially abundant, and her response time was also extremely swift. At the critical moment, she swiftly evaded to the right side as she rolled onto the ground, avoiding the fatal strike which was casted towards her back. Huang Yueli rolled onto the ground for a moment and immediately got up, thinking of counterattacking. But by the time she turned around to look at the person, she realized that the person did not follow up with the attack, but instead turned around heading towards the small mechanism which she had refined, attempting to cut the rope using a curved knife in his hand. "Stop it!" Huang Yueli's eyes turned wide as she called out sharply, gathering her profound energy and casting it towards the other party. However, that person came prepared and his actions were extremely swift. Before Huang Yueli could arrive in time, his long sword blade had already fallen onto the rope. A plop sound was heard. The long sword was swept with profound energy as it slashed heavily onto it. Even the ground was driven a deep mark as dust and mud flew everywhere. Luo Jiyun also realized that something had happened on the top of the cliff, but he was helpless right now. Li Moying had tied him up tightly into a bundle to prevent him from falling, and he was totally immovable. Of course, even if he wasn't tied up, he was no different from a cripple, so he couldn't help Huang Yueli anyways. Seeing that the other party wanted to cut off the rope, Luo Jiyun was scared witless that his heart almost jumped out from his mouth. He witnessed the blade of the knife falling down towards the rope and shut his eyes tightly, awaiting the drop into the valley. He had not expected that after Li Moying expended so much work, but yet he was still going to die here. But out of his expectations, Luo Jiyun waited for a while, but had not felt the gravity pulling fall. On the contrary, he was lifted up by a distance again. Luo Jiyun hurriedly opened his eyes and saw the masked man who had struck also dazed on the spot, apparently not expecting this rope to be so durable. A fifth-tier upper-grade profound weapon knife slashing down so hard, and it actually didn't break off? Huang Yueli took the opportunity while the masked man was in a daze to take out a large quantity of thunder flame balls, throwing it towards him. The masked man was shocked by the sudden obstruction and didn't manage to respond in time. By the time he was aware of the danger, it was already too late. Huang Yueli's secret weapon exploded consecutively in front of him. He evaded to the left and right, but was still bombed several times. With many injuries on his body, he had no choice but to retreat continuously. Huang Yueli immediately rushed upwards towards the mechanism. At this particular moment, she only had one thought in mind, which was to pull Luo Jiyun up immediately. Although the immortal binding rope could resist against profound weapons, which were fifth-tiered and below, but the profound weapon in the masked man's hand was a fifth-tiered upper-grade weapon. The immortal binding rope could still resist against 1 or 2 slashes, but if the number of slashes increased, it would still break off. So she made a prompt decision immediately. Huang Yueli bent down and stretched out her arm to grab the immortal binding rope while infusing her profound energy into it. After that, she used her strength to swing the rope, swinging up the rope into the sky. The masked man's eyes flashed past a shocked look as he cried out in alarm. "It's bad. Quickly stop her. We can't let her pull Li Moying up." You can also listen on. Hearing that, Huang Yueli's heart faintly felt a sliver of puzzlement. Li Moying? Why would they mention Li Moying? The one she was pulling up, wasn't he Luo Jiyun? However, before she could give it any further thought, she sensed another burst of profound energy attacking from her right back. It was directed at the fatal spot of below her ribs. This move was extremely meticulous. If she didn't let go of the immortal binding rope to block this move, then she would be struck in the ribs, and this would definitely cause hemorrhage. This was a fatal spot concerning her life and death. But if she was entangled with the person, that would give the masked man a chance to continue slashing the rope. Luo Jiyun was originally seriously injured, so if he were to fall down from such a height, there was no way that he wouldn't die. This person apparently thought that he was very smart as the moment he drew out his sword, he opened his mouth and talked. "Miss Bai, withdraw your hand. For a man, giving up your life really isn't worth it. You have such a bright future in front of you, so why do this?" This voice sounded extremely familiar, and Huang Yueli's mind seemed to ignite a spark as she seemed to have guessed the identity of that person. The movements in her hands paused for a moment, and the strength used to swing the rope seemed to have weakened. The person who came felt delighted as he thought that his threat had developed some use, so the move he struck out wasn't that vicious. After all, his motive was to kill Li Moying and not to kill Huang Yueli. He revealed a smile on his face, but before he gave a broader smile, he saw Huang Yueli bent down. The person looked at her in surprise. Huang Yueli's finger drew an arc on the ground and coincidentally drew out a series of array patterns as she softly cried, "Break!" While the person's face was still in a daze, he felt the earth which he was standing on suddenly loosening as he sunk downwards directly. His body lost balance, and he landed head first onto the ground. The person tried his best to steady himself on his feet, but in this way, it hindered a chance for battle. Huang Yueli re-established her strength as she started swinging the rope once again. Luo Jiyun's body was swung out of the pathway along with the rope, drawing out a half-moon arc in midair before he crashed heavily onto the ground not too far away. At the same time, Huang Yueli rushed towards him immediately. She knew that Luo Jiyun would not have any battle strength now, and if the person who tried to stop her from pulling him up wanted to kill him, it was as easy as lifting a finger. So Luo Jiyun required her full protection right now. Huang Yueli stretched out her hand and patted heavily onto Luo Jiyun's back, and the rope on him loosened. Whereas Huang Yueli herself had retrieved her icy jade zither from the sky phoenix ring, and her fingers lightly plucked at the strings as she began to play. The urgent zither sounds rang continuously as though silver bottles broke abruptly, intimidating the will of the people. But just at this moment, The person on the side suddenly stopped his attacks as he used an extremely astonished tone, crying out, "What's going on? It's not Li Moying." The masked man heard that and stopped as he gazed behind Huang Yueli. He really isn't. What's going on? How come Li Moying didn't come up, but instead he sent this trashy Luo Jian up instead? Could it be that he's still at the bottom of the cliff? Speaking of that, he seemed to have thought of something as he couldn't help but laughed out loudly. That's right. I know already. Li Moying is definitely still at the bottom of the mountain, and he should have met with trouble, so he can't come up. Could it be that we don't even need to lift a hand, and he directly died down there? You can also listen on. Huang Yueli heard their tone and voice, and her heart jolted as the tune that she was playing on the zither suddenly paused for a moment, as it was totally messed up. She bluntly stopped as she stared at the duo in shock. You are Lung Yifeng and Li Lingchuan. The both of them. Since when have you colluded together? It wasn't anything strange for either one of them to want to scheme on Li Moying, but now the both of them are actually taking action together? How could this be possible? Celestial Light Sect and Green Cloud Sect's relationship was at loggerheads. After the two men's identities were exposed, they exchanged glances and directly stopped hiding as they removed the disguise used to conceal their identities. You deserve to be called Miss Bai. Your eyesight is really extraordinary. We've been exposed in such a short amount of time. Li Lingchuan originally wanted to be the mastermind behind the scenes, but whoever knew that Huang Yueli had exposed his identity in such a short while? He was extremely unreconciled as the words he said were full of spunk. Lung Yifeng pursed his lips as his expression was chilly, not saying a single word. Huang Yueli stared at them in a biting cold stare. It indeed is the both of you. I was just suspecting why junior brother Luo would suddenly run into the central region for no apparent reason and even got trapped with a serious injury. Someone must be behind all these. I'd not expected you two to be the culprits. Li Lingchuan, no matter what, your sect master Murong's beloved disciple. How could you be like Murong and I, becoming a traitor of the sect? Li Lingchuan laughed. Traitor? Your words are too harsh. Murong and I was a lackey for Green Cloud Sect, which is really called the Sex Traitor. I'm merely cooperating with Mr. Lung. No matter how I see it, we're merely benefiting from each other's relationship. Huang Yueli didn't wish to hear his denial and bluntly asked, "Stop all these rubbish talk. What do you want to do by luring me and Moying over? Do you want to take Moying's life?" Huang Yueli had seen plenty of internal strife in the sect, and originally suspected that there was something fishy behind all these. Now on seeing Li Lingchuan's stance, her heart swiftly analyzed and deduced around 80 to 90% of the cause and effects. Not waiting for Li Lingchuan's answer, she continued, "Let me guess, junior brotherly made a move this time. Could it be for Moying's young sect master's position? I've never expected that a mere celestial light sect's young sect master status will make you betray the sect, coming out with such an underhanded method. A sect like Celestial Light Sect in Sky Emperor City isn't even considered as third-rated. It's only trash like you who treat it so importantly." Li Lingchuan's thoughts had been seen through by her as his eyes widened in disbelief. Right before this, he knew that Huang Yuli's innate talent was outstanding and she had unparalleled beauty, but he had not expected Huang Yuli's thoughts to be so profound or that her foresight was so sharp. Those shameful thoughts couldn't mask her eyes at all as she easily saw through it, without any concealment. This feeling seemed like he was stripped of all his clothes in the bustling city and made to run around naked, which made him both angry and embarrassed. Furthermore, under Huang Yuli's deep and chilly gaze, Li Lingchuan uncontrollably shuddered as he suddenly felt an icy sensation in his heart. At that moment, he had an illusion that the person he was facing was Li Moying himself. Huang Yuli's imposing manner, which radiated around her, was totally not any lesser than Li Moying. After being dazed for a moment, did Li Lingchuan regain his senses as he cried out in a disheveled state, "How daring of you! Celestial Light Sect is merely a third-rate sect?" You can also listen on. When Li Lingchuan heard that, he immediately started laughing. Ha 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 ha. This is really funny. Are you still dreaming that Li Moying could still come back? Huang Yueli's lips curled coldly as she didn't say a word. Li Lingchuan complacently said, "You totally don't understand the situation below the cliff. No matter how capable Li Moying is, it is hard for him to get out of the perilous situation. Otherwise, no matter how precipitous this cliff is, it would merely take a quarter of an hour for him to climb up. Why is it that he still hasn't climbed up till now?" When Huang Yueli heard that, she suddenly felt uneasy. That's right, since she pulled Luo Jian up to expose Li Lingchuan and Lung Yifeng's identity. It had already been 1 hour, but Li Moying still hadn't appeared. Instead, the lightning bolts in the sky were falling one after another, more and more concentrated. Her vision shot towards Luo Jian, and upon seeing his ghastly expression with his forehead filled with sweat, his eyes bore a hopeless expression. Li Lingchuan also noticed him and immediately laughed. Look, my beloved fifth junior brother obviously knows the situation down the cliff. When you came up, Li Moying must have been tangled with those magical beasts down the cliff, isn't it? Aren't those magical beasts' abilities much stronger than your imagination? Huang Yueli frowned slightly, not quite believing in Li Lingchuan's words. However, Luo Jian's trembling body had already verified Li Lingchuan's words. Li Lingchuan continued, "To tell you the truth, I have a cloudy Qilin Mystic Regions map in my hands. It stated very clearly on the map that below this cliff is the central region of the Mystic Region. It is filled with dangers here, and there are various high-level magical beasts. It's even rumored that there are many other traps, so even if a 9th-stage realm practitioner falls in, he can forget about leaving this place alive. Although Li Moying's innate talent isn't bad, but he's just in the 7th-stage realm. How could he possibly leave that place?" Saying that, he turned towards Luo Jian. "Have I said it correctly? Fifth junior brother?" Luo Jian's expression flushed white, and he looked as though he was about to cry. Choking as he spoke, Little sister-in-law, I've done you wrong. It's all because I'm so dumb that I can't even figure out such a simple trap. Not to mention that I've been schemed. I've even dragged eldest senior brother down for coming to save me. We have been tangled with 10 over high-level magical beasts earlier, and he personally stopped those magical beasts in order to let me come up first. Now. Hearing Luo Jian's words, Li Lingchuan laughed so much that he couldn't stand straight. Hear that? What I said wasn't wrong, eh? Li Moying, he's definitely dead. Huang Yueli's expression was gloomy as her lips were tightly pursed. Her eyelids drooped down, and she didn't say a single word, not knowing what she was thinking about. Li Lingchuan continued, "Miss Bai, now that things have come to such a pass, Li Moying is already dead. There's no point for you to keep tangling on this. We only want Li Moying's life and not to harm you at all, so you need not be so tightly strung." He turned back and gestured towards Lung Yifeng's direction. "Look at that Master Lung. He's one talented person. You probably don't know about this, right? Master Lung is a 9th-grade talented peerless genius, and he's not only Green Cloud Sect's eldest disciple, he's even a direct descendant of the Lung family. His status is much higher than Li Moying's. Why don't you just follow him instead? Woman, isn't following any man the same? As long as the other party is powerful enough. It's your honor that Master Lung wants a second-hand good like you. You can also listen on." Huang Yueli had yet to say anything when Luo Jian couldn't stop himself from cursing. "Despicable. Utterly shameless. Second senior brother, I've really misjudged you. You've caused eldest senior brother's death, and even helped Lung Yifeng to dominate Lil's sister-in-law. Under the heavens, how is it possible to even find such a shameless person like you?" Luo Jian was so angry that he kept shaking, and at the same time, he was feeling guilty and blamed himself. Things had developed to such a step all because he was just too dumb. If it was possible, he really wanted to end in mutual destruction with Li Lingchuan and the others. But unfortunately, he was now like a dead dog, bundled up and thrown into a corner, not being able to do anything at all. Li Lingchuan's expression changed as he turned his head and gave him a malicious stare. "Shut up. What thing are you? Is it even your turn to lecture me?" Luo Jiyun retorted. "My ability is indeed not up to you, but at least I still know what is integrity and honor. You dare to even do such low-life things, yet still afraid of me cursing you? You caused a fellow from the sect to die and coerced sister-in-law? You definitely get retribution." Li Lingchuan was originally feeling guilt, and hearing his curses, he felt even more frustrated. He waved his sleeves, and a burst of profound energy flew towards Luo Jiyun as it struck him on the chest in one blow. Luo Jiyun flew out and threw up blood consecutively, smashing heavily onto the ground. He was originally heavily injured, and now there was another injury on top of the previous. So when he landed on the ground, he was panting more than he was breathing, and it looked as though he was on his last breath, but that pair of eyes stared at Li Lingchuan intensely, unresigned. Li Lingchuan stared at him sinisterly. "I asked you to shut up, didn't you hear me? On account that you're my junior brother, I can't forgive you for the last time for offending me. As long as you swear your loyalty towards me in future, I can let bygones be bygones, otherwise, pooey." Luo Jiyun immediately spat out a mouthful of bloody spit. Li Lingchuan abruptly had a change in colors, looking for death. He was flabbergasted as his imposing manner rose swiftly around him. With profound energy concentrated in his palm, he casted a vicious hand towards Luo Jiyun directly. Based on Luo Jiyun's current condition, if he was stuck by this move, he would probably die on the spot. However, this profound energy was stopped in the middle of its path. Luo Jiyun had originally shut his eyes, waiting for death, but he didn't feel the expected pain. Instead, a profound energy, clashing explosive sound rang by the side of his ears. Following that, a young lady's tender, angry voice rang. "Enough! Li Lingchuan, Luo Jiyun is already severely hurt and isn't of any threat to you. Why must you kill to the last one?" Li Lingchuan's move had utilized 70% of his power, and he had not expected the fifth-stage realm Huang Yueli to be able to stop it. He narrowed his eyes as an astonished look flashed past. Indeed, the woman whom Master Lung and Li Moying took fancy on. For you who's able to block my move, you're indeed considered to have outstanding innate talent. It's not hard if you want me to let Luo Jiyun go. As long as you nod your head now and leave with Master Lung, I promise that I won't make a move against Luo Jiyun. Luo Jiyun immediately cried out in shock. "No way. Little sister-in-law, just ignore me. I'd rather die than to let you suffer such humiliation." Hearing that, Lung Yifeng uncontrollably got angry out of embarrassment. "Indeed, you are seeking death. Why is following me a humiliation? So many young ladies want to enter my Lung family's door, and this master cannot be bothered. Miss Bai, as long as you nod your head to return to Sky Emperor City with me, I will guarantee Master Luo's safety and also be responsible for treating all the injuries on him. You can also listen on." Lung Yifeng also started to use Luo Jiyun as an excuse. He realized that Luo Jiyun being alive had become Huang Yuli's soft, and as long as she cared about Luo Jiyun's life and death, then there would be the possibility of her being threatened. However, Huang Yuli bit her lips tightly, not saying a single word. Lung Yifeng felt that it was a little strange. Huang Yuli had always been a sharp-tongued lady, and usually when she met such things, it would be strange if she didn't answer back sarcastically, so how could she possibly remain silent? Could it be that because of Li Moying's death, she suffered too huge a blow and decided that she should consider carefully if she should follow himself? Before Lung Yifeng had time to be happy, he suddenly heard Li Lingchuan's cry of surprise. "You, what are you doing?" Right before her eyes, a blinding flame suddenly lit up, slashing the empty space. Wherever the flame went, the warmth of the surroundings rose steadily, so scorching hot as though it was about to burn everything into ashes. Along this burst of flame was an overbearing and raging fire, attributed energy as it flew out of Huang Yueli's hand, charging straight towards Li Lingchuan's face. At the same time, several thin cicada-like daggers were thrown out all at one go, splitting into upper, middle, and lower directions, obstructing all avenues of Lung Yifeng's retreat. Huang Yueli's move was simply too sudden, and as she had stated days earlier, both men thought that she was about to be convinced, as they assumed that she was considered what condition she would like to raise. Hence, they totally had not expected her to make a move at all. So this round, both men were caught unprepared. Li Lingchuan hastily evaded the attack, foregoing his image as he rolled along the ground for half a round, but he was still burnt by the flame, as his right shoulder's clothes were all burning and nothing, with an evident burnt mark on his flesh. Whereas Lung Yifeng was also struck. His left thigh was slashed by the dagger and was bleeding nonstop. But even so, Li Lingchuan and Lung Yifeng were genuine 6-stage realm end-stage top experts, and their foundations were stable, absolutely not a half-pass standard like Morong Fei. Even though the both of them were caught in a sneak attack, but their reactions were still swift as they managed to evade their vital points from being hit, and at the same time putting out a defensive stance while preparing to counterattack at any point of time. Later on, Huang Yueli couldn't find any chance to make a move. Li Lingchuan laughed chillingly. "By Ruoli, you're rather amazing. Still know how to do a sneak attack, while everything is still messy. But don't get it wrong, you're just in an elementary 5th stage realm cultivation, and no matter how talented you are you intending to challenge 2 6th-stage realm practitioners at the same time? Do you really think we're idiots? You cannot run, so stop the useless struggles. You'd better lie flat and obediently serve Master Lung, so that your future days would be—" He said a load of words delightfully. But before he could finish talking, he heard a sinister and biting cold voice from his back. "You say, you want my fiancé to go serve who? Who else could it be? Are you silly? Of course it's Master Lung," Li Lingchuan replied in a sarcastic tone. But after he spoke out, he suddenly realized that the voice sounded very familiar. Not like Luo Jiyun's voice, but Li Lingchuan's heart instantly jumped to the back of his throat as cold sweat started to roll down his spine. Surely not right? Not possible, right? He must have heard wrongly, right? He didn't dare to turn his head back, but from the expression on Lung Yifeng's face, it had already explained everything. "Li, young sect master Li, how is it possible that you, when—" Meeting Li Moying's pair of deep and pitch-dark eyes, Lung Yifeng stammered as he couldn't even finish his sentence properly. "You can also listen on." Li Moying stared coldly at the duo in front of him as his eyes were filled with a murderous air. His vision fell on Huang Yueli, and on seeing an obvious patch of dust on her clothes, his face sunk even more. "Junior brother Li, Master Lung, I got to admit that I admire your guts. Did you really think that a few magical beasts would be able to claim my life? You actually dare to hurt Lier? You're really seeking death." The minute his words were spoken, Li Lingchuan couldn't curb the terror in his inner heart as his legs softened and he plopped directly on the ground. He trembled while explaining, "Eldest senior brother, misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. Miss Bai's clothes were stained with dust. That's because she grazed against the ground, absolutely not hurt. Really not." Huang Yueli lowered her head to find that there were indeed plenty of dirty spots on her clothes, as she couldn't help but frown. She really wasn't hurt, but in a moment of urgency earlier, in order to save Luo Jiyun, she rolled around on the ground, hence the dust stained her clothes. But whoever didn't knew that the little priestess of the mythical flame palace loved to be beautiful the most. Being dirty made her extremely unhappy. So she pouted and started to complain to Li Moying. "Moying, they're really arrogant earlier. One by one, they said you were dead and asked me to quickly remarry. They even said that Lung Yifeng was much stronger than you, so following him was the best choice." When Li Lingchuan heard that, he was so scared that his soul almost flew away. Who didn't know that Li Moying cared most about this little fiancé of his? The charge of wanting Huang Yueli to remarry was much more serious than scheming against Li Moying himself. "No, it's not like that. I saw Miss Bai too upset, so, in order to comfort her—" Luo Jian couldn't take it any longer as he shouted out loudly. Eldest senior brother, don't listen to his rubbish. You weren't around earlier, and the two of them had already admitted they wanted to harm you. Second senior brother did so to snatch your young sect master position, while Lung Yifeng had his eyes on Lil's sister-in-law for a long time. When he said that, Li Lingchuan and Lung Yifeng both stared at him flabbergasted as they wished they could use their gazes to kill him. Originally, the both of them were thinking of how to deny, but in the end, they were exposed by Luo Jiyun in a few words. But in front of Li Moying, they couldn't do anything to Luo Jiyun at all. At this moment, Luo Jiyun's injuries were extremely serious, and his entire body was in so much pain as though he was being roasted over fire. But his feelings were totally different from earlier. He knew that as long as Li Moying was around, there wouldn't be any problems. No matter how Li Lingchuan and the others schemed, they had no way to fight against Li Moying's absolute ability. I was just thinking, why didn't Lil's sister-in-law make a sound earlier? Luo Jin suddenly thought of something as he laughed. So, you two were exchanging messages secretly earlier, discussing how to allow eldest senior brother to come up safely? Whereas these two dumb fools actually thought that Lil's sister-in-law really had a change of heart. That delighted look? Ha ha ha. You guys are really humorous. Huang Yueli's lips curled up slightly. You've been dumb for an entire day, and now you've suddenly turned a little smarter. Luo Jiyun broke out in sweat. Lil's sister-in-law, I know I'm in the wrong. Li Lingchuan and Lung Yifeng then realized that now. No wonder Huang Yueli suddenly struck out against them, attacking the both of them at the same time. She wasn't intending to defeat two sixth-stage realm practitioners, but had already discussed with Li Moying on the next step. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli's sudden attack attracted their attention, and Li Moying took the opportunity to get up from the cliff. No wonder his appearance was so silent. Li Lingchuan and Lung Yifeng self-professed that they were first-rate talents in South Sky region, but yet they hadn't even sensed a single bit until Li Moying opened his mouth to realize his existence. You all. Li Lingchuan's teeth were chattering. He suddenly recalled his delighted and satisfied look earlier, and he wished he could severely give himself a tight slap. What kind of ability did Li Moying have, and just how intelligent and resourceful Huang Yueli was? This wasn't his first day finding out, but he was still so careless thinking that he had easily gotten his way. He scarcely realized that these two had long decoded their trap, which they had specially created. The show which they had performed, in their eyes, was probably no different from two clowns dancing. Li Lingchuan's face flushed red, feeling that he had been slapped a few hundred slaps on his face on the spot, so embarrassed to the max. Furthermore, the most serious of it all was that his scheme had failed and he had fallen into Li Moying's hands, so his life had a bleak future. When Li Lingchuan thought of this, he got even more terrified. At this very moment, he was no longer concerned about pride or whatever matters, knowing that as long as he could continue living, no matter how lowly or shameless he had to be, he must continue living. He turned his head back, and in an instant, he knelt down and kept kowtowing to Li Moying with all his might. At the same time, his tears and mucus started flowing down altogether. Eldest senior brother, I'm wrong. I really know I'm wrong. I've done all these because I was possessed, and I also don't know why I would suddenly do such a thing. I don't dare to. I absolutely would not dare to in future. Eldest senior brother, on account that we're brothers from the same sect, please spare my life. I will work extremely hard to redeem my mistake from now on. He tried his best to plead for mercy as he tried till his liver and guts were cut to pieces, simply to the point of himself being touched by his act. However, Li Moying still remained silent, only looking down at him from the top as he turned around and walked to Huang Yueli's side. Lier, are you really not hurt? Huang Yueli shook her head, but she appeared to be extremely upset. I'm all right, but my clothes are so dirty. I'm sure it cannot be cleaned. This is made out of wild silk yarn, extremely comfortable and beautiful, and I especially love it. Li Moying touched her face as he looked at her tsundere expression and the huge stone pressing on his chest, was finally lifted as a warm feeling filled his heart. Heaven knew that when he was at the cliff before facing so many high-level magical beasts, the most fearful thing was not that he might die, but if anything happened to him, what would happen to his Lear? The two of them had used an entire 2 lifetimes before they were able to connect in one heart and mind like this. They had yet to get married and had not reached the peak together. If they were forced to separate in 2 worlds again, would not be resigned to it. Luckily, he managed to get rid of those magical beasts successfully, and his Lear was not hurt any bit. Hearing her soft grumbles, he could only thank heavens for this. There was nothing much better than this. You can also listen on. Lemoyne gave a deep laugh. No matter, we can always buy another set of clothes if it's dirty. After we leave the Mystic region, I'll accompany you to Sky Cloud City's biggest clothes store. Huang Yueli barely replied. All right, then. Lemoyne looked at her pouty little face as he wanted to lean over and gave her a kiss, but he also knew that this wasn't the right moment, so he forced himself to suppress the impulse to get intimate with her. While the two of them were talking, Li Lingchuan continued to kowtow. At this present moment, he had already kowtowed for more than 100 times, and his head banged against the uneven ground and had long started to bleed. Blood started to flow down his cheek and jaw, making his appearance look extremely malicious. Lemoyne's ignorance made him even more humiliated as he was burning up inside, but he didn't dare to stop for fear that Lemoyne felt that he was insincere. Li Lingchuan clenched his teeth as he bore with the rage inside, still continuing to kowtow, but kept repeating in his mind again and again, Lemoyne, just you wait. If the day comes when you fall into my hands, I would absolutely not let you off, and will get back at you for the humiliation which you have given me today. Lemoyne didn't even bother to take a side glance at him. He naturally knew just how infuriated Li Lingchuan was, but so what about that? He totally didn't need to bother about this clown. Continuous dull knocking sounds were heard in the area where Li Lingchuan was. Lemoyne, however, looked towards Lung Yifeng's direction. Lung Yifeng was actually standing very near Huang Yueli, thinking of using the chance to get close to Huang Yueli. If she insisted on not obeying him, then he was prepared to use his advantage of his potential to the fullest, forcing her instead. But too bad, before his plan had even materialized, Lemoyne appeared. Lung Yifeng took advantage of the chance, while Lemoyne was teaching Li Lingchuan a lesson as he kept retreating backwards and backwards and backwards even more, hoping to retreat out of the boundary of his vision. But was Lemoyne someone who was easy to fool, allowing him to run off like that? Master Lung, I remembered that I've warned you previously that if you try to get near my fiancée again, I will not take regard to the relationship between the two sects. I'd not expected that you actually dare to make a move towards Lear. This, meeting Lemoyne's gloomy gaze. Lung Yifeng only felt his legs turning into jelly as his body involuntarily started to shake. He used up all his self-restraint, so he didn't knelt down on the ground in such an embarrassing manner like Li Lingchuan. But his heart was extremely terrified, bearing the same chief eldest disciple status. But just one glance from Lemoyne radiated such powerful aura, totally not giving him any possibility to resist against it. Why? Why was Lemoyne that strong? He bore the brunt and spoke out with cold sweat soaking his clothes. Young sect Master Li, don't be rash this. It's not fake that I like Miss Bai, but Miss Bai isn't married yet, so isn't it normal for me to like her? Even if Sect Master Morong finds out about this, he won't blame me for it. But I'm telling you, I'm the direct descendant of Lung family from Sky Emperor City. If you really dare to do something which is irrevocable, then the consequences isn't something which you can bear. Lung family, Lemoyne repeated as there was a hesitant look in his eyes. Lung Yifeng hurriedly replied, Exactly. I bear a status in my family. I'm sure you've heard of Lung family's reputation. What kind of thing is that? Lemoyne cut him off coldly. You can also listen on. For a moment, Lung Yifeng thought that he had heard wrongly. What did you say? Seeing Li Moying's unperturbed look, Lung Yifeng emphasized again in disbelief. Are you crazy? I said I'm from the Lung family. My clan is considered a huge powerhouse in Sky Emperor City. You dare to slight the Lung family? Li Moying said coldly. Sky Emperor City has 7 great hidden sacred grounds. May I ask what rank does Lung family stand at? This, Lung Yifeng's mouth was agape as his tongue was tied, not expecting him to ask such a question. Lung family, as compared to the top 7 sacred lands disciples of course, wasn't even worth a fart. But in the eyes of ordinary people, it was already in existence which they couldn't even claim connections with. Li Moying continued. Even if you're one of the disciples from the 7 sacred lands, but now that you're in the mystic region, who can save you here? Lung Yifeng's eyes widened as he simply could not believe that such a thing was happening. He had always been proud of his birth. Everything he was crushed by Li Moying, he would comfort himself, no matter how strong Li Moying's ability was. So what about it? In future his achievements would outshine Li Moying because their backgrounds were just too different. Don't think Li Moying was unparalleled now. If he really went to Sky Emperor City, it would not be his turn to be complacent. Lung Yifeng had always maintained this self-confidence, but in the end, the thing which he had been so proud of, in Li Moying's eyes, was actually nothing at all. He gritted his teeth. Li Moying, you can continue to be stubborn and reluctant to admit the fact. Even if I'm in the mystic region, if I die here, my family would find out about the news, and by then they would definitely investigate and link it to you, so by then it'd be difficult for you to escape, even if you have wings. Who do you think you are? No matter how talented, you're still a human. Do you think that you can go against the entire Lung family? Li Moying calmly replied. Anyway, you're going to die right now, so you don't need to worry about these. Saying that, the aura from his body suddenly rose sharply as his profound energy gathered in an instant, as powerful awe started to envelop the surrounding regions. Lung Yifeng retreated consecutively, but he was still unable to stabilize himself. Li Moying's back was facing the light, and his aura was so powerful to an astonishing level. In just that instance, Lung Yifeng felt that he wasn't going up against some 7th-stage realm talented practitioner, but a peerless expert whom he totally couldn't fight against. Right in front of him, he appeared to be so tiny, like an ant. Li Moying took a step towards him, and Lung Yifeng instantly felt his blood surging around his chest as blood started to spill from the corner of his lips. He gave a dull moan and summoned up the profound energy with him while shouting out loudly. Li Lingchuan, what are you waiting for? Are you really going to be a sitting duck? Li Lingchuan had been waiting for this moment, and when he heard that, he swiftly leaped up from the ground. The two of them struck out at the same time. They knew that in front of Li Moying, even if they joined hands, there was no possibility of victory at all, so right from the start. The both of them used all their energy to unleash their killer moves and also gathered all their profound energy, casting their attack towards Li Moying. Luo Jian was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat and cried out in shock. Eldest senior brother, be careful. Huang Yueli, on the other hand, stood at her original spot calmly, as though nothing had happened. If this degree of sneak attack was successful, then Li Moying would have been done away with in his pastime long ago. So how would he become the #1 top exponent? Indeed, facing 2 6th-stage realm practitioners' utmost strike, there wasn't any change in Li Moying's expression at all. 7 sacred lands. #1 was Blue Profound Sect, whereas #2 was Mythical Flame Palace. You can also listen on. Li Moying had long expected that these two fellows would absolutely not surrender, just like that, and had been guarding against their kickback. At this moment, he merely retreated back slightly as he evaded the duo's attacks. At the same time, his right hand flipped, and the amethyst light sword was unsheathed. Li Lingchuan's attack landed on empty ground, and when he saw Li Moying preparing to make a move, he totally didn't hesitate as he turned around and fled in defeat towards the densely packed forest. Lung Yifeng was preparing to take on his attack when his side glance noticed that his ally had actually run off. He was so angry that he threw out a mouthful of blood immediately. Li Lingchuan, you villain. You're making me bear the brunt for you. The two of them had obviously arranged to make a move together, but Li Lingchuan grabbed the opportunity to escape first, so wasn't that obvious that he was letting him be the cannon ash? Facing a top exponent like Li Moing alone, he definitely had no chance of survival. Although he knew Li Lingchuan was a despicable man, but he had not expected that he could be so shameless to this extent. Li Lingchuan wouldn't bother about him, as he ran off without saying a word. At this moment in time, preserving his own life was the most important thing, so who would bother about society's morality? Lung Yifeng had teased Huang Yule, and he would definitely be dead, so he wouldn't possibly accompany him in his doom. However, at this moment, he suddenly heard a burst of split-air sound. Immediately following that, his back felt a pain sensation as he was sent flying. Li Moing saw Li Lingchuan escaping for his life, and his gaze flashed as the next strike was not directed towards Lung Yifeng, but conjuring the heaven and earth's profound qi. He pursued after Li Lingchuan, intending to escape for his life while things were still disorientated. That would have to depend on whether Li Moing was agreeable or not. How could Li Lingchuan possibly imagine that his self-professed intelligence had instead attracted Li Moing's attention, which brought his doom quicker than usual? Li Lingchuan's body was like a kite with a broken string as he shakingly fell into the deep end of the dense forest. The minute Lung Yifeng saw Li Moing distracted, he immediately retrieved a circular profound armament from his realm ring. This was an 8th-tier profound armament, Thousand Ray Seal. It could only be activated once, and the minute it was activated, it could exhibit a strike which was equivalent to an 8th-stage realm peak's potential. This was something which the family gave to direct descendants as a means to save their lives, and unless it was a life-and-death crisis, otherwise they were absolutely not allowed to use it easily. Lung Yifeng originally couldn't bear to bring it out, but Li Moing refused to falter, and his ability was so powerful. Seeing the heavy strike which he dealt Li Lingchuan, it appeared that he was really prepared to murder someone. Lung Yifeng knew that if he didn't use this ultimate move now, he might not have another chance later, so he could only clench his teeth tightly as he placed all his stakes in this one bet. While Li Moing wasn't paying attention, he activated the Thousand Ray Seal and threw it out towards Li Moing's back. Moing, be careful. He has the Thousand Ray Seal in his hands. This time, even Huang Yule became anxious as she cried out loudly. At the same time, she abruptly struck out, throwing out a handful of 6th-tier profound armaments, clashing against the Thousand Ray Seal. 6th-tier profound armaments naturally couldn't resist against 8th-tier profound armaments, but as the quantity of profound armaments which Huang Yule threw out was a lot, when it clashed against the Thousand Ray Seal, it managed to diminish a portion of its energy, and at the same time, decrease the speed of the Thousand Ray Seal. Li Moing heard her cry and hurriedly turned back. Lung Yifeng's lips revealed a cold smile. Although he had not expected Huang Yule to suddenly make a move and had actually managed to diminish a portion of the might from the Thousand Ray Seal, but even so, this was still the full force strike from an 8th-stage realm practitioner who was at the peak. You can also listen on that you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.